Here is a fact that will make every soccer fan on the planet laugh. In 1950, the United States sent a team to the World Cup, a team that included a dishwasher, 2 mailmen, a grave digger, a mill worker, and a part-time postman who had a photographic memory and could describe every single game he ever played, the weather, the color of the opponent's socks, the exact minute of every goal. That team walked onto a field in Brazil and beat England, the team that invented the sport, the team that hadn't lost in 23 of their last 30 matches, the team that didn't even bother entering the first 3 World Cups because why would they? They invented the game. They were just going to Brazil to pick up the trophy, and the United States beat them 1-0. And back home in America, nobody cared. There was exactly one American journalist at that entire World Cup, one, and his newspaper wouldn't even pay for the trip. He took time off work and flew to Brazil out of his own pocket just to cover it. The win didn't make the front page. It barely made the sports section. So here's the real question. If the U.S. could beat the best team in the world in 1950, why did it take another 70 years for Americans to actually start caring about soccer? The answer involves a backroom deal with FIFA, a political buzzword that won a presidential election, a league that died because of a scheduling conflict, and a summer in 1994 that changed everything. Stay with me, because this story is nothing like what you've been told. Let's go back to June 29, 1950. Belo Horizonte, Brazil. The U.S. team is about to play England. The English players are professional footballers pulled from the best domestic league in the world. They are well-rested, well-funded, and almost offensively confident. The English Football Association hadn't even bothered entering the previous World Cups. They invented football. Why would they compete in a tournament run by people they taught the game to? Now, picture the American side, hastily assembled just days before the match. Several players couldn't even make the trip because they couldn't get time off work. The ones who did show up included a dishwasher named Joe Gaetjens, a Haitian immigrant who had only just applied for U.S. citizenship, a postman named Harry Keogh, and a funeral director. The Belfast Telegram described them as a band of no-hopers drawn from many lands. The odds weren't even discussed. This wasn't a game people expected to be close. And then something happened. Joe Gaetjens lunged for a cross in the 37th minute and deflected it. Some say with his head, some say with his shoulder, past the England goalkeeper. 1-0 USA. England threw everything at them. The Americans held on. Final score, USA 1, England 0. The reaction around the world was instant. Newspaper editors in England genuinely believed the score was a misprint, that someone had accidentally left a 1 off the front of the American total. In Belo Horizonte, Brazilian fans who'd been cheering England ran onto the field and carried the American players off on their shoulders. Back in the United States, silence. The only American coverage came from that one journalist, Deb McSkimming of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, who had paid his own way to get there. He wrote the story. His paper ran it. Almost no one else did. Why? Because 4 days earlier, North Korea had invaded South Korea, and the country was glued to war headlines. Soccer wasn't even on the radar. And here's the detail that makes this story unforgettable. Harry Keogh, the postman who played in that game, later said he almost felt sorry for the English players. Not because of what happened on the pitch, but because of what they'd faced when they got home. The U.S. lost their next game 5-2 to Chile, went home with 0 fanfare, and wouldn't qualify for another World Cup for 40 years. The greatest upset in American sports history, and the country shrugged. That tells you everything you need to know about where U.S. soccer was, and how far it had to go. Fast forward to the 1970s. Something extraordinary is happening. Pelé, the greatest soccer player who had ever lived, just signed with the New York Cosmos. Not a team in Brazil, not a team in Europe. New York. 70,000 people showed up to watch him play. 70,000. In a country that supposedly didn't care about soccer. The NASL, the North American Soccer League, was suddenly the hottest thing in American sports. TV deals, sold-out stadiums, celebrities in the stands. It looked like soccer had finally cracked the American market. By 1978, there were 24 teams in the league. 24. That's more than the NFL had at the time. And then it all collapsed. not slowly, fast. Here's the part that's rarely told. The single event that killed the NASL wasn't bad attendance or player salaries. It was FIFA giving the 1986 World Cup to Mexico. The league had been lobbying hard for the U.S. to host the 1986 tournament. They were counting on it. A World Cup on American soil would have given the league the credibility boost it desperately needed. Investment would follow. TV deals would follow. Sponsors would follow. Colombia was originally supposed to host 1986 and then withdrew. The U.S. put in a bid. They campaigned for it. They genuinely believed they were getting it. FIFA gave it to Mexico instead. Within a year, the NASL played its last season with only 9 teams. On March 28, 1985, the league officially suspended operations. The league that had Pelé, that had 70,000-person crowds, that had 24 teams, gone. Soccer in America went dark again. But here's what almost no one mentions. Even before the collapse, there was a reason the NASL could never get a real foothold on American television. The league didn't secure a full television contract until 1979, 11 years into its existence. By that point, casual fans had never seen a game on TV, and the Americans who did tune in struggled with a continuous play format in an era built around commercial breaks. The sport didn't fit the TV model. And in America, if it doesn't fit the TV model, it doesn't exist. So by the mid-1980s, you had a country with no professional league, no TV deal, and a soccer federation that had just embarrassed itself in front of FIFA. The sport was back to zero, or so it seemed. Here's something that almost nobody knows. MLS, Major League Soccer, the league that Lionel Messi plays in today, the league with 30 teams, the league that sold $200 million expansion slots, didn't exist because Americans fell in love with soccer. It exists because of a backroom deal made on July 4th, 1988. That was the day FIFA awarded the United States the hosting rights for the 1994 World Cup. And when they did, they had conditions. FIFA told the U.S. Soccer Federation, "You want this tournament, you build a professional league, not a minor league, a fully structured Division I professional soccer league to replace the NASL, one that would still be operating after the tournament ended. Soccer had to be big in America, not just during the World Cup, but permanently." The U.S. agreed. Clive Toye, the man who signed Pelé for the New York Cosmos back in 1975, put it like this: FIFA is run like a country club. If you're going to join, you abide by the rules. You don't change them by standing outside the door, kicking at it, and spitting in the eye of the man who opens it. The U.S. had already learned that lesson the hard way. During their campaign for the 1986 tournament, they had insulted FIFA officials, made threats, claimed deals were made in secret, and, according to people inside the process, generally embarrassed themselves. They lost that bid. This time they played it smart. They agreed to FIFA's terms. And as part of that deal, in 1993, U.S. Soccer approved what would eventually become Major League Soccer. MLS launched in 1996 with 10 teams. Think about what this means. The league that millions of Americans follow today, the one that convinced Messi to leave Paris Saint-Germain, the one that has sold out stadiums in cities that didn't care about soccer a decade ago, was born not from organic love for the sport, but from a contractual obligation made in a boardroom to win the right to host a tournament. Soccer in America was literally reverse engineered. Build the tournament first, then build the fans, then build the league. And the wild thing is, it worked. The skeptics in 1994 were loud. They said the stadiums would be half empty. They said Americans wouldn't watch a sport they didn't understand. They said it was a mistake to give the World Cup to a country that didn't care about the game. What actually happened was the most attended World Cup in the history of the tournament. 3.6 million people showed up across 9 American cities. The average attendance per match was 68,991 fans. That record has never been broken. Not in France, not in Germany, not in Brazil, not in Qatar, not anywhere. The United States in 1994, in stadiums built for American football, hosted the biggest, most attended World Cup ever played. And here's the detail that nobody talks about. Most of those stadiums weren't built for soccer at all. They were NFL venues with fake grass and sight lines designed for a sport where the action is in a 10-yard box, not spread across a 110-yard pitch. And people filled them anyway. Something shifted in America that summer. It wasn't just the attendance numbers. It was the feeling. Families who had never watched soccer sat in front of their TVs. Kids who had been playing in suburban leagues for years suddenly had a national team to root for. Immigrant communities who had been following the sport their entire lives felt, for the first time, like soccer was being taken seriously in the country they now call home. And that's the story that gets skipped. American soccer's growth wasn't driven by the national team winning. The U.S. went out in the quarterfinals that year, beaten on penalty kicks. It wasn't driven by a superstar. The U.S. didn't have a Pelé or a Maradona. It was driven by the tournament itself, by the experience of having the whole world show up at your door and play the world's game on your soil. After 1994, the number of youth soccer players in the U.S. exploded. Outdoor participation has since grown to over 14 million players, an 8% increase just from 2022 to 2023 alone. Still climbing. Today, soccer is the second most popular youth sport in America behind basketball. More kids play soccer in the U.S. than play baseball, than play tackle football. That generation of 1994 kids, they grew up, and they brought the sport with them. Here's how you know soccer had truly embedded itself into American culture by the mid-1990s. Politicians started using it. During the 1996 U.S. presidential election, 2 years after the World Cup, campaign consultants coined a term for a new kind of swing voter, a suburban mother, busy, working, driving a minivan, ferrying her kids between school and sports practice, specifically soccer practice. They called her the soccer mom, and both parties spent millions trying to win her vote. Think about what that means. Soccer had penetrated suburban American life so deeply, not at the professional level, but at the grassroots youth sports Saturday morning level, that it had become a defining cultural identity, not just a game, a demographic, a political category. The term soccer mom was first used in a local Denver City Council election in 1995 before exploding nationally in 1996. By that point, 18 million children were enrolled in organized sports across America, and a significant chunk of them were playing soccer. The number of working mothers had risen to the point where the afternoon pickup from soccer practice had become the organizing rhythm of suburban family life. That year, soccer moms broke for Bill Clinton over Bob Dole, not because of anything soccer-related, but because the sport had become so embedded in everyday American life that it had become shorthand for an entire way of living. And here's the part that gets completely overlooked in this story. While soccer was being sold to America as a white, suburban, minivan and orange slices kind of sport, the real engine of its growth was happening somewhere else entirely, in immigrant communities, in Latino neighborhoods, in cities. Telemundo's viewership for World Cup games consistently outpaced English-language broadcasts. The sport that America was just discovering had been home for millions of Americans for decades. The 1994 World Cup didn't introduce soccer to the U.S. It introduced the U.S. to the soccer that had already been there. So, when did the U.S. actually start taking soccer seriously? Not in 1994. That was when the country got its first real look at what the sport could be, not when MLS launched in 1996. That was a contractual obligation that turned into something real, not even when the U.S. women's team became the most dominant international soccer team in the history of the sport, winning 4 Women's World Cups while the men's program was still trying to qualify. The answer is, it's still happening, right now, in real time. In February 2026, 24.4% of all Americans said they planned to follow the World Cup. By May, that had risen to 34.4%, more than 1 in 3 Americans. Among people who already play soccer, 79.8% plan to watch. The 2026 World Cup, which kicks off this summer across the United States, Canada, and Mexico, is the first tournament to feature 48 teams instead of 32. More countries, more matches, more drama. And the U.S. will be hosting the final at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, the same area that hosted the 1994 final. 32 years between World Cups on American soil, and everything has changed. The kid who watched the 1994 World Cup on a boxy TV in their parents' living room is now a parent themselves, buying tickets and taking their own kids to games. The league that was created by contract in 1988 now has 30 teams and plays in soccer-specific stadiums that weren't built for anything else. The sport that needed a backroom deal just to get a professional league now has cities on a waiting list to join that league. And the story that started with a dishwasher and a postman beating England in a Brazilian mining town, a story that one journalist paid out of his own pocket to cover, that didn't make the front page, that the country completely ignored, that story is now being told on the biggest stage in the world. Because it turns out, America was never bad at soccer. It just took a while to realize it had been playing all along. If you made it this far, you already know more about U.S. soccer history than 99% of people who will watch the 2026 World Cup this summer. Share this with someone who still thinks America doesn't care about soccer. See you at the final.